we're about to go live.
I think we might be live now. Hi, guys.
Yes, we are live. Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome to definitely different conversations with the first official kickoff. We have done it before, but this is like very official. And Christel Crawford is my official interviewee. And we're going to talk about a topic that really excites her. Let me introduce you a little bit about Christel. So Christel is a certified access consciousness facilitator and facilitates access classes all over the world. Also has a very beautiful, vibrant online business and is really strong with business. So she's creating a lot with businesses for businesses and creates like more possibility and more for people and their businesses. So welcome, Christel.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I also work with Christel, so I'm really happy and excited about this. And today, the topic is body knows. So Christel, what do we mean with that?
Well, this is oh gosh, what do we mean? The simple response to your question is that your body knows shit. All kinds of shit. Your body is aware. And for me, this has been something that I've probably resisted or denied almost all of my life, and also simultaneously had an incredible capacity with. And so it's been a kind of an unfolding conversation over the last 7 years that I've been playing with the access consciousness tools. What's my body saying? How does my body speak to me? Am I even willing to listen to it? What questions can I even ask it to get it to say something? How does it talk? You know, like all the different things that you could imagine you'd have to sort of learn in regards to a topic that's not talked about in this reality. Like you're just not shown that your body has awareness, that your body has a point of view, that your body has preferences. Like that's nothing I got when I was a kid, you know. So I was taught how to abuse my body, ignore my body, pretend I didn't have a body, and you know, pretty much that was my education on bodies. So yeah, but your body has awareness of all the things that relate to it, and there's like so many different directions we could go. So where do we want to start?
Well, one of the images that pops up is the way that toddlers give away people. So they first to learn how to draw people, and it's like a big head with 2 legs and maybe like 2 feet and 2 hands, and that's it. And so like basically toddlers really show very well like how most people live their lives like in their head. So how do you go from living in your head to living in your body?
Well, I have not been able to do it without the body work of access consciousness, if I'm honest. One of the very, very first classes, well, the very first class, as you start to get into the body of work that is access consciousness, that you ever take is a 1-day class called Access Bars. And I recently, after 7 years, had this major epiphany about why the hell that's the first class. But it's a body class, and for a long time it didn't make sense to me why a body class would be the very first class in a big body of work that for the most part seemed to be leaning more heavily towards like verbal processing, verbal change, you know, energetic change from a verbal point of view. But when I look back over these last 7 years and the change that I've seen in every area of my life, like money and business and happiness and relationship, everything, I could not have gotten there without the body work. And so the bars starts the process of your body beginning to get what it is to receive. We don't even talk about receiving ever until access consciousness. Like I never heard that word talked about other than like receiving something sexual, you know, which isn't even, you know, so you get to just lay there and have somebody else like be present with these energies in your life and on your head, and you get to just change and be there for the change. That's it. It's like, it's not hard. In fact, it's discounted many times because it isn't hard. It's incredibly relaxing, it's incredibly delicious, and that's the very beginning of a different way of being in the world that isn't really shown to us here. And then after that, after I took the bars class, I really went full tilt into the rest of the classes in Access, because I became a certified facilitator in 8 months. So it was fast. And most of the classes that I went to, sure, I got my bars run, and yeah, we did a few body processes here and there. But most of them, my focus was on the verbal tools and the change that created for my being. I really still didn't have any value or understanding or any sense of the fact that my body was relevant in the conversation. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, but then, I recognize that too.
Yeah. So, but then I saw a class advertised right after I became a certified facilitator. Maestro came out. Dane created the Maestro class, and Maestro is right now the most advanced class in Access, and it has the highest level of prerequisites. So I had just taken all these classes to become a certified facilitator, and then Dane created the Maestro class, and I was like, oh, I have to go to that. And I needed 7 classes to get there, including 2 body classes and an advanced body class. And during that time, I also took a class called the Abuse Hold class. So I had 4 full classes, so 10 full days of energetic body work done on me in preparation for this Maestro class. And it so happens that the Maestro class is also a bodywork class. And I came out of that stretch of classes so different, like so different. I'll tell you the quick story, and then we can go into even more of this. Like after the 2-3 day body classes and the advanced body class, I didn't actually realize like how much information I wasn't getting until after I took those 9 days of classes, and I pretty much took them back to back. So I was really different after. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and we walked into this pub. And I've walked into 100 pubs before, nothing different about this, but I walked in and I literally felt like my skin was on fire. I was like, I got this flood of information with the cells of my body that I had never, ever, 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 ever perceived before. And it was so much, I remember actually like leaning up against the wall and looking at him going, I might have to leave. Like, it was a shock. It was shocking. It was shocking to me, like how much I had not picked up on before. And if we skip timelines and go pre those body classes, I remember distinctly not having any sensation in my body, because I had a certified facilitator friend who would do these energetic exercises, and she would go, put your attention on your body. And I'd be like, yeah, I did. And then I didn't feel anything. And I asked her about that one day. I'm like, am I supposed to feel something with my body? There was so much energy that had been locked in and out of my cells, like the cellular structure of my physical body, that it was numb. Like I just couldn't really feel. I could feel something if somebody stabbed me, but the sensation of energy was something I really couldn't feel until the body work. And even that didn't seem super relevant until I think I don't know at what point it became relevant, but in Access, we're surrounded by these conversations of, well, ask your body. You want to date somebody? Ask your body. You want to eat something? Ask your body. So I would play with that, but I really started playing with it when I started dating a lot. Because there's questions you can ask your body to get information about the other person. And I know you're doing a class on this, and so we could have a whole other conversation about this. That would be so fun. But there's questions you can ask your body to get information about this other person, including, will I contract anything? Will it be fun? Will it be easy? Will I be grateful after? Will I be happier? And so I started using dating as a playground for just dating from awareness, instead of dating from fixed points of view of like, well, he's good looking, so it'll be fun. And that was really where I started communicating with and being with my body in a really, really different way. So it's a really super long answer to your question, but like, I just didn't, I had no idea the amount of information you could actually get from your body until I had it available. And then I was like, holy crap, I had no idea how much wasn't there before, you know?
Yeah. Well, I love this and thank you. And what came up while you were talking, because I remember before it was a bit similar. Like before I have ever done like a 3-day body class with the tools of access consciousness, I was basically like a walking, talking head. I was always in my head, and after that class, I never really had, and I know this may sound weird for people who have never heard this kind of a language or like about the tools of access consciousness or the 3-day body classes. Before that class, I wasn't living like at all. I was like constant on survival instead of like really living. So what came up as well is like, how much are we right now living, quote unquote, but actually are just waiting to die? Is there something that we could talk about that, where you mentioned receiving, and I get that receiving is a very vital part of like living, choosing to live. Could we say something about like choosing to live, and how receiving from your body is like really vital to have that as a choice?
Yeah. Like, yes. How much time do we have? Gosh. I mean, it definitely showed up different for you and I, you know, in different ways. For me, choosing to live was a choice that I physically made, like I actually made after a 2.5 hour session with another facilitator. I got 2.5 hours of body work. And I realized that what unlocked for me in that session was how fucking hard it had been for me to be here. And my life has been very intense. You know, there's been a lot of abuse, religious abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, self-abuse, you know, financial abuse, like really pretty much any abuse that you could possibly think of, I had. And so getting into the work of access consciousness for me was this big unraveling of things that I didn't even know I had held onto or tied up in knots, or and I did discover in this particular class that I had been trying to not die, or basically barely holding on to living or surviving forever. And I was probably 41 at the time when I discovered that in a class. I had a session in a class, weirdly. And so I let that realization of what it was is I wasn't letting myself know that I didn't want to be here. I just didn't want to be here. This is too hard. Fuck it. And I let that just be true. I let that be true for a full day, 24 hours. I was in an advanced body class at the time. And this is, I think, what's so interesting about the body work of access is that you get paired with somebody and you simply work on each other. You pick an energy to run on each other. And what shows up are these incredible life shifts that you can't get to another way. Your body becomes this like catalyst or conduit, or I don't even fully understand it, if I'm honest. But what unlocks in your body catalyzes these immense changes in your life. And I've had that happen over and over and over. And in this particular class, what catalyzed for me was the choice to live, because I didn't realize I had been just not dying up to that point. And I remember distinctly choosing to go, okay, I will be here now. And of course, right after that moment, everything changed. Money got easier, business got easier, everything got easier. Because when you're trying to not die, everything's hard. But when you're choosing to live, and then you begin, after that, I started to choose like, what's the adventure of living? Then everything's easier because you're creating that now instead of trying to not do the other thing. So that's how that showed up for me. And from that moment on, my conversation with my body has deepened, you know, and broadened. And you talked about being a head on legs. Me too, totally. And what even when I facilitate now, when I'm facilitating, I really invite everybody, including me, into the awareness that everything you're aware of is from here down. It's like in your body. It's your body gives you the information, but everything that you're going to think or feel or emote is like from here up. And this is where we limit ourselves. This is where we try to figure things out, or worry or stress or overthink, or all that shit that doesn't work happens here. Everything that works is down here. And so the practice for me is constant of tapping into my body and what I'm aware of, and what's got the sensation of lightness, what's got the sensation of heaviness. And it's becoming more automatic. Like, it's not so much of it used to be, it was a definite conscious practice for a long, long time. And in some areas it still is, but so it gets easier. You just know, and it's not hard anymore. But it's a change from the way we're taught. And yeah, I know that sort of went in 8 different directions, but that's really, yeah.
So for people who never heard of like lightness and darkness,
heaviness, yeah,
lightness and heaviness, what is the difference? What is heavy, what is light, and why should we use that as a way of to receive or feel your body?
Yeah. Well, I guess the first thing that's one of the first tools that we give anybody in Access Consciousness. It was the first one I was introduced to ever via email. When I first asked about Access, I was so confused by, like, what is this big mammoth sprawling thing called Access Consciousness, and where the fuck do I start? And so I finally found a facilitator in London, Ontario, and I emailed them, and I basically said that, where the fuck do I start? And she said, well, you can start anywhere. You can start with a session. You can start with a class. Like, what's lighter for you? What's light for you is true for you, and what's heavy is a lie. And I was like, so I held out my hands because I didn't know what the F I was doing. And I'm like, lighter, class, session, class, And so in the beginning, I didn't know what that was. And I ended up having about 4 sessions before I took a class. And that first session changed my life. So I did know. And that's what I love about that very first tool. Like, if all you ever used for the rest of your life was light and heavy, you would always lead yourself to what's going to create more for you. And that's what the tool's for. The tool is to give you the sensation of space, expansion, lightness. And that's how you'll know that thing or that person or that choice is going to create more for you. Because you can't figure most of that. You can't figure it out. You can't figure out why you want to go that direction. Nobody I've ever asked about why they took a bars class ever knows why they took it, ever. They don't even barely remember how they got introduced. They definitely didn't know what it was. They didn't do their research. They just followed that sense of, I have to go there. And so everything that's heavy is not true for you. It actually doesn't create more for you. And, gosh, if I'd have had that information as a kid, I don't know what would have happened. I would have had so much information about my family that I probably didn't want, but, but that's the tool. And so I want to say that first. And then the second thing I want to say is that it isn't a feeling, it's a sense. But your body senses things. It just, and so it's gentle. Sometimes it's super clear. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that's heavy AF, just heavy as fuck. And then other times it's like a whisper. And so it's really beginning to educate yourself on how your body senses things, and how you know things that you can't explain that you know, and how you know other things in the other direction that you can't explain that you know. How does your body sense? And that's light and heavy. So cool.
I would like to add something to that, because
Yeah.
I have experienced with myself and with other people who were asked, like, can you perceive if it's heavy or is it light for you? And that before having ever a bar session, that was like almost not possible.
Almost not possible.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because we're living in a world, and this is something that I start to see the difference so way more than before. Like, I was so used to, and I reckon most people are so used to living in a world that is very dense. And a lot of people have, this reality has a lot of structure, a lot of opinions, a lot of things that are like set, like all the things that we think is real and true is like walls, heavy buildings, like material. When you look at chemistry, you have like air, gas, it's very free, and then the things are like stuck material. This is what happens also with a lot of when we function from judgments, self judgments, and think like this is it and nothing else is possible. So I can imagine that maybe some people who are like listening or watching this, they're like, what, heavy light, I don't feel any difference. It might be because like I could perceive it for the first time after my bar session, which actually gave me the feeling that there was 100 kilo armor was lifted from my body, and I'm not exaggerating.
I'm not either. I felt like I was 10,000 pounds lighter after a bar session, and I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't know what I was carrying around. And I don't even know, Evie, when I started perceiving light and heavy. It took me a while. I think for me, like, it took me so much more body work than I can even articulate. Like now that I'm looking back, I'm like, I had, 5 bars sessions, and then I took a bars class, and then I did some body work in a foundation class, which is a 4-day class. And even then, I don't think, it took me a while. So you're right. I mean, that, whew, to me, that speaks to what our bodies are actually doing with everything that we're aware of and everything that we go through that we never acknowledge, because who tells you that? Who,
Yeah.
Like when I remember very distinctly my very first abuse hold class, which the abuse hold is a body process that somebody else does for you. You get partnered with somebody. But to get to that class, you have to listen to a recording of a class. It's about 2.5 hours, 30 times. And I remember when I first started listening to that recording, the amount of like nausea and sleepiness and stuff that was going on in my body as things around abuse, energies around and pertaining to the abuse that I had dealt with started to unravel. And it was intense. It was like uncomfortable in my body. And this is the, as we were sort of unlocking it, to me, it reminds me of these like twisted, like metals and, things that just get like locked in there. As those start to unravel, it was like, but so I did all that. I did the 30 times and I went to the class, and it wasn't very dramatic. It was like, it was nice. You kind of get spooned for an hour, and then you spoon somebody, and that's the class. And I don't know, I think I expected angels to sing or something. I got out of the class. It was such a big topic for me. Abuse has always been this huge thing in our family, and such a big topic. And I think afterwards I was like, well, that was kind of, well, whatever. Okay, I did it. But I went back home after, and at the time I was working for a restaurant as a manager and a bartender. And I was also dating the guy that owned it. So my routine was to, drive to the back of the restaurant, where I would walk in the kitchen and go through the restaurant and go upstairs to his place and eat whatever. And then I'd come down and I'd work. But and I'd been doing that for like, I don't know, 8 months. So there were many days that I had done this same thing, same drive, same entrance into the kitchen. And every single time I would drive up and go into that kitchen, I would have a flood of what felt like anxiety, like rush into my body. I didn't have a lot of information about much at that point. I was brand new to access consciousness. I didn't really understand what entity awareness was. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the amount of intensity that was in that building. Nothing. I didn't really get it. So anyway, I've been taking classes, and I take the abuse class, and I do the same thing. I go to work. When I get back and I drive up, and I'm walking into the kitchen like I had many times before. And what was so noticeable is that I had no anxiety. It was as if there had been an oak door in my chest before where everything would buffet against and get stuck. And it had been replaced with a screen door where all the energies just like went through. It was so noticeable. And the rest of the night was like that too. Like things could just occur and I just wasn't affected anymore. I had a sense of peace and space in my molecules, in my physical body that I had never had access to before. And when Gary had talked about the abuse hold as a body process, he told us that. He's like, the abuse is going to leach from your cells. And we're all just like, yeah, okay, cool. No, it did.
Yeah. So you don't always have to feel like you're on watch.
Pins and totally hyper alert, and that was the thing, is like I was constantly, the adrenaline pump in my body had been going for 40 years because of the level of high alert that I had always been on from all of the abuse happening all the time. And there's a lot of that goes on even if you've never had a quote unquote abusive childhood. I mean, the adrenaline pump in our society is insane. But yeah, it just was gone. And my life's been, and that's how every body process that I do, every 3-day class, every one afternoon class does that. I leave and I'm just different. Money is just different. My body is just different. Relationships just change. Just like that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow. I had something and it's gone.
I just wiped it.
Actually, going to check if there's like any questions. I'm going to check on my phone. And see.
And while you're doing that, I guess the thing that if you guys are new, if you're watching this and you're new to this, newish, whatever. Yeah, to this thing about your body, this thing about having access to your body and having a conversation with it is, what if your body could give you what if your body could give you the information you think you lack? There's a really, really cool section in the foundation manual, and it's written by Gary Douglas. And one of the things he says in that, and if you want to see the whole thing that he's written, you can go to my Facebook page, and we did a video about it. But one of the things he says, he's like, what if you embodied so much consciousness that you inspired change in everybody around you? And again, I've been playing with these tools for 7 years now. And I think this year is the first year I was like, oh, embodying consciousness. That's different than using a tool or doing the tools or just doing just enough so that this little part of my life is easier. It's like embodying consciousness. And that was not a possibility for me 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago. It became more and more possible as I did these classes and as I facilitated the body work and as I continue to have my bars run and as I continue to go to these classes, that becomes more of a possibility. And the gift of that is that none of the shit that everybody else is at the effect of is something you ever have to be at the effect of. You start to recognize all those things that made your life difficult before because you couldn't get awareness of them, all the assholes in the world that make your life harder. Now you start to perceive them. You start to get what they are. You start to be able to lead yourself to money. You start to be able to create things with your business that weren't available before because you have a sense now of what creates more and what doesn't. You become the embodiment of consciousness, and consciousness is just includes everything and doesn't judge. That becomes a reality, a choosable, beable, perceivable reality for you. And so then it doesn't really have to be available to anybody else when you're being it, because you have the peace and the space of that. And I don't know any other body of work that creates that in other bodies. And that changes everything. That has changed my whole life. That continues to change my whole life. That's given me access to the spirit world in a way that I didn't have before. Because to be aware of the spirit world, you have to have access to your perceiving, knowing, being, and receiving. They don't have bodies. They communicate differently. So now I'm no longer at the effect of that. I get to be a facilitator with and receive from, and like have this incredibly rich landscape that I didn't have available before. So all of it, and sex is totally changes. Who you want to have sex with totally changes. Relationships totally change. The world of actual contribution where you can gift and receive becomes available. Like it all changes. So I just, like I can't get over really like how much wasn't available before that is now. And I'm just curious, like what else is possible? Like what consciousness could we really be that would make all of life coming to me with ease and joy and glory a total reality?
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of a life from pain and like financial pain and physical pain and psychological pain into a whole new world basically with where something else is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if you've got there's so much. Yeah. I just would say, like, if you're watching this and you've got areas of your life that you seem to have used the tools that don't seem to change, go get yourself to a body class.
Yeah.
And even if that isn't where you're at, like if you're just starting, get yourself to a bars class. See, what if you would explore the gift that your body can be to you that you can't even fathom? That you can't fathom, you don't believe in. I mean, this was where I was coming from. Like, I couldn't fathom it, I didn't believe in it, and it seemed like a total waste of time. Well, I was wrong. And without that body work, would not be where I am today. Like, I can't even imagine now, like, not having that available. And the conversation goes, like, it just expands after this, because then we get access to these healing capacities that we all have, and what we can be for each other and what we can be for our body. I mean, there's just so much. There's like a universe available with this.
I actually have a cool story because this is so brilliant what you say. Like, what does your body know that your head will never understand? Not so long ago, I was developing like a very big ulcer in my mouth, you know, where in this reality, it's the saying goes, when you don't have enough vitamins and stuff, you create ulcers in your mouth. And I was developing an ulcer and it was getting bigger and bigger and more painful and more painful. And I started like asking questions like, what is this? What is this? And then it came out that I was healing my grandma, and which is like so weird, so different. Like, what does creating an ulcer in your mouth has to do with healing your grandma? So I asked a few more questions. And when I finally asked, is my grandma willing to receive this kind of healing? And I got a no. And then I was like, okay, buddy, can we just not do that anymore? Because she's not willing to receive it. Like, so why would I have to be in this pain with this ulcer? Because if she was willing to receive it, I would have gone with it. Like, yeah, okay, just do whatever you need to do. And the moment where I was like, okay, can we just stop this? Like in 1 hour, the ulcer was completely gone. Just that. And this kind of information has been possible for me thanks to playing with these tools of access consciousness. Empowers you to know that most people would never think is possible.
Yeah, I had another, I mean, we can wrap up, I guess. Just real quick, like there's so many stories of body change that you just don't think are possible. And one of the things I really discovered about my body is that it heals. What is it? It heals, yes. But what it does is it becomes aware of, in particular, suppressed things. And so it will give me information about other people's suppressed things in places in my body where I have to pay attention. So I was with a partner for a while that had so much suppressed anger. And I was getting kind of confused about why I felt angry all this. Like I felt angry an unnatural amount around him. And then my body developed hemorrhoids. And I've, I haven't had a baby. Usually when you have a baby, you get hemorrhoids or, you're old. I don't know. I was like, I've got what? Like, and so, but what my body gifted me was this unraveling of where I'd been suppressing anger, that the fact that suppressed anger was even a thing, awareness about this particular relationship and what was working and what really wasn't working. It gave me all this information. In order to change it, I had to be willing to become more aware. And I see that over and over and over and over and over with my body. Like my body will reveal something to me. And if I want to change it, I have to be willing to actually look at what's going on. And there are always areas where I've been unwilling to be aware up to that point. So, I mean, that the level of gifting that the body is like on all these, it's pretty uncanny. It's like giving you awareness of things you haven't wanted to be aware of, giving you awareness of what the future will be that you have not wanted to know, giving you awareness of what your choices will create that you may or may not have been aware of before. I mean, just like the list is like really, really long about what your body can tell you if you're willing to begin engaging in the creation of your body as a gift, not as a gift from like, oh, it looks a certain way or it wears a certain dress size. It's like your body as a source of creation and as a source of awareness and possibility. Amazing.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, like everybody who's watching and all the bodies, what does your body know that you have never been willing to allow yourself to know? That if you would know it would make you so weird and definitely different.
Yeah. And would give you and would contribute a level of joy and peace and ease that you've never even known was possible. And what would that be like? What would it be like to have a reality where you were fully, fully, fully relaxed, where living could be from the relaxation of it instead of the adrenaline pump of needing to prove and do and function in a way that everybody else will approve of, where you get to actually be? What would that be like?
I will provide links to Christel Crawford, her website. She also does body process classes, and I will also add a link from the website Access Consciousness. And for you guys who are all interested in this, please check it out. What else is truly possible? Christel, thank you so much. I feel very peaceful right now.
Me too. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you and so grateful for this conversation. So,
how does it get any better than this?
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching and listening, and till the next one. Bye.
Bye for now.